Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
I always figured if I made it to 60, I'd get a backyard barbecue, maybe a cold beer in one hand and my grandkids roughhousing nearby, a decent steak on the grill, a couple of toasts that'd feel clumsy but heartfelt. That's what you start to imagine when you spend your life breaking your back for other people, little payoffs, not huge, just a quiet moment where maybe, just maybe, someone says, "Thank you," without a damn price tag attached to it. But what I got instead? That was something I couldn't have prepared for, not even in my darkest moods or loneliest mornings. It was a warm Sunday, late June, sun overhead just enough to cook the tops of bald heads, but not enough to keep the ice from sweating in the cooler. I showed up 5 minutes early, old habit, can't help it, and already folks were gathered in the backyard. Cheap folding chairs, red plastic cups, paper plates, that overplayed happy birthday playlist coming from someone's Bluetooth speaker that kept cutting out. It wasn't elegant, but I didn't need elegant. I just needed honest. And I thought, for a split second, maybe I'd get that. Then I saw the cake. It was sitting on the card table next to the cooler, big rectangle thing, white frosting, balloons piped in the corners, and in the middle, in bold red cursive, it said, "Congrats on being irrelevant." At first, I figured maybe I'd read it wrong. Maybe it said iridescent, or something else, something stupid. But no, that was it. Irrelevant. Like I was an old website or a burned-out bulb. Like I had expired. My daughter Brianna, who organized the thing, was laughing loud, fake, high-pitched, the kind of laugh people do when they know they've crossed a line, but are hoping if they make it sound like a joke, you won't punch them for it. "Come on, Dad," she said, waving her hand like I was being dramatic. "It's funny. You're always saying you're out of the loop." I looked at her. 42 years old, 3 divorces, still calling me to cover her car insurance when a guy leaves her. I could have said 1,000 things in that moment, but I didn't say a word. Just gave her the same look I used to give Mason when he'd lie about sneaking out the window, quiet, disappointed, and already gone in my mind. Speaking of Mason, he was the first to take a picture. He stood beside the cake, grinning with that half smirk that kids have when they think they're better than everyone else. Took a selfie with it. Then posted it. I know because he tagged me. "Happy 60th to the OG. Hashtag irrelevant lol hashtag boomer's birthday." That was the moment it all really clicked. I wasn't even a person to them anymore. I was a meme. I was a background character in their lives, useful for babysitting, occasional money handouts, and getting ribbed for not knowing how TikTok worked. I didn't make a scene. I'm not that kind of man. I nodded, smiled, thanked whoever grilled the chicken, and when no one was looking, I quietly grabbed my keys and left. No hugs, no goodbyes. Just one last glance at that damn cake, the word irrelevant, melting slowly under the sun like it was trying to disappear before I burned it into my memory. I drove home with the windows down, wind in my ears, the radio off. I didn't want music. I didn't want distraction. I wanted the silence. That old kind of silence, the one you get after everyone's gone to bed and you're staring at a photo you didn't know would make you cry. I pulled into my driveway, sat there for a few minutes in the truck, and just stared at the house I built with my hands, where I raised 2 kids, patched hundreds of things, paid off one mortgage and refinanced another just to help Brianna get through nursing school. I thought about my wife, Marlene, dead nearly 20 years now. God, she wouldn't have laughed at that cake. She would have stood up, knocked it to the ground, and cursed the air dry. She had fire. She protected me from their bullshit, even when she didn't realize it. And I suddenly missed her so bad I couldn't breathe. I walked into the house, turned on one light in the kitchen, and sat down at the table. I didn't take off my shoes. I didn't pour a drink. I just stared at my own hands. Calloused, knotted, worn down from 6 decades of labor and love and everything in between. And all it got me was a cake that said I didn't matter anymore. You ever have that moment where something just snaps? Not like rage. Not even sadness. Just this final, deep knowing that something inside you is done? Like a door closing softly. That was it. That was the moment. I stood up, went to my office, opened the bottom drawer where the old file box was, the one labeled estate. I hadn't touched it since before my last surgery. Pulled it out, dusted it off. Inside was the original copy of my will. And that night, I started writing a very different kind of will. Let them laugh. Let them post. Let them high-five and tag their dumb little jokes. I had 6 months left and a whole hell of a lot to say with silence. You don't spend 6 decades on this earth without collecting a few scars, some you see, most you don't. I didn't get here by being soft or slow or lucky. I got here because I worked harder than most and kept my damn mouth shut when it would have been easier to scream. The truth is, I never expected much from life, and maybe that's why it kept giving me less than I deserved. But I kept going anyway. Because that's what you do when you've got mouths to feed and a mortgage to pay and no one else to blame but yourself if things fall apart. I was 19 when I first put on the uniform. Vietnam wasn't some abstract war on a newsreel to me. It was mud in my boots, gunpowder in my lungs, and names on letters I wrote home but never sent. I came back different. Everybody says that, but no one really knows what it means until they're standing in a grocery store aisle with a jar of pickles in one hand and a sudden need to disappear before the weight in your chest explodes. I didn't talk about the war much, still don't. There were things I saw that no man should have to carry past 20. But I did. Because again, that's what you do. After the service, I started working at a small garage, McIntyre Auto on 5th. 40 years I spent there. I could rebuild a carburetor with my eyes closed, diagnose a bad alternator by ear, and tell a man he was about to get screwed by a dealership before he even finished his story. I stayed loyal to that place long after the owners changed hands and the computers started replacing gut instinct. Loyalty was a thing back then. It meant something. At least I thought it did. Marlene and I bought our first home 2 years after I got back. Little 2-bedroom with peeling paint and bad plumbing, but it was ours. She had a laugh that could knock the wind out of you, and a stare that could kill a lie in midair. We didn't have much, but what we had was solid. Until the cancer came. Breast, stage 3. I drove her to every appointment, sat in every waiting room, read every pamphlet twice even though none of it made sense. She died at 38. Just like that. Brianna was 12. Ethan was 10. And I was suddenly both parents, which felt like trying to row a boat with one arm while bleeding from the chest. I didn't date after Marlene. I figured I already had my once-in-a-lifetime. Why go looking for half of something when you've already had the whole? So I focused on the kids, worked overtime, missed birthdays, sold my 1967 Chevy C10, the one I rebuilt with my dad, the one with the custom walnut steering wheel and the transmission I rebuilt twice by hand. That sale paid for Brianna's nursing school. Well, most of it. I paid off Brianna's med school loans. That was, what, $75,000? Maybe 80? It all blends together now. I just kept signing the checks, kept making it work, one piece at a time. Mason, her boy, came along when she was barely 23. I helped raise him more than she did in those early years. Changed his diapers, picked him up from school, even built him a treehouse that he stopped using the second he got a phone. When he turned 18, he got accepted to a state college. His credit was too new to get a loan on his own, so I co-signed. Stupid thing to do, in hindsight. He dropped out sophomore year, said college wasn't for him. Never paid a damn cent of it back. But I kept swallowing it all. Because that's what dads do, right? You eat the crap, smile through it, and hope someday they see what you did. But they never did. Somewhere along the line, I stopped being a man to them and started being a resource. A walking wallet. A ride to the airport. A place to store their boxes when their apartments got too small. I wasn't irrelevant. I was convenient. And here's the part that stings the most. They didn't even know me. Not really. Ask Brianna what my favorite movie is. She couldn't tell you. Ask Mason what I did before the garage, and he'd probably say, something with tools. I wasn't a person to them. I was background noise. Familiar wallpaper they stopped noticing years ago. It hit me one morning, about a week after the birthday party, when I found an old photo in the garage. It was me, Marlene, and the kids, all standing beside that Chevy truck, arms around each other, real smiles on our faces. It was from a time before things got complicated. And looking at that picture, I realized something I hadn't been able to admit even to myself. I didn't lose my family. They just outgrew the version of me they wanted to keep. The version that fixed things. The version that paid bills. The version that didn't ask for anything in return. But me? The real me? They never took the time to meet him. I wasn't irrelevant. I was exhausted. From carrying everyone else's load while no one ever thought to ask how heavy it really was. So when I sat down with my lawyer that week, I didn't just change the will. I changed the locks, too. It's a strange kind of freedom, the kind that comes when you finally stop waiting to be seen, stop hoping for someone to knock on your door with a plate of understanding and a half-decent apology. I'd spent too many years choking on silence, biting my tongue down to the root every time I got dismissed, every time I heard, "Relax, Dad, it's just a joke," or "You wouldn't get it." What they didn't get was that I did get it. I got it a long time ago. I got that I didn't matter to them except as a backup plan, a couch to crash on, a man-shaped ATM with arthritis, and no opinion worth hearing. And once I finally stopped pretending otherwise, I felt lighter than I had in decades. The first thing I did after seeing the lawyer was go into the garage and pull the tarp off the old 1958 Chevrolet Impala I'd been restoring on and off for 10 years. I'd saved that car from a salvage yard in Amarillo, hauled it back in pieces, and put it back together inch by inch, month by month, until it gleamed like a ghost from my youth. It was my pride, my secret therapy, and the last thing I'd truly built with both hands that didn't end up disappointing me. But even that had to go. I listed it with a private dealer who catered to real collectors, the kind who knew what they were looking at. 2 weeks later, it sold for $126,000 cash. That money didn't sit in a savings account waiting to be drained by a future family emergency. No, this time I decided where it went and why. I split the sum into 3 parts. The first chunk went to a veterans support fund I'd once relied on myself, back in the days when I couldn't sleep unless I was on the floor, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like motor oil. The second portion funded a local scholarship I set up under Marlene's name for kids raised by single parents, because I knew that struggle better than most. And the third part one donated anonymously to help restore a crumbling war memorial in the town square, the same one my grandson Mason used to skateboard on like it was a damn playground, never once bothering to read the names etched into the stone. It wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming something. Dignity. Control. A sense that the life I had led, with all its quiet battles and thankless victories, meant something beyond being laughed at over sheet cake and lawn chairs. Then came the real work, the will. I didn't just scribble something down on a legal pad and call it a day. I sat with my attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Carla who didn't flinch when I told her what I wanted to do. I told her, straight up, that I wanted every legal I dotted, every loophole sealed, every sentimental heirloom locked up or given away on my terms. I told her I wanted nothing, and I mean nothing, to fall into Brianna's or Mason's hands. The house, the one I poured 35 years into, patching leaky pipes and fixing shingles with a damn near broken back, wasn't going to them. It was going to Jake. Just a neighborhood kid, maybe 16 or 17, quiet, polite, never asked for much but always waved when I passed by. He helped me mow the lawn some weekends. Talked about engines like they were magic. Asked questions. Actually listened. One day I gave him a busted lawnmower engine, and he took it apart, cleaned every piece, and had it purring 2 days later. That kid deserved more than Mason ever even tried to earn. Jake reminded me of me. Not the broken-down version my family ignored, but the young version, full of grease and questions, and the kind of hands that wanted to build things. So I left him the house. Every nail and floorboard. I even left him the garage tools, every socket, every wrench, and a few things I'd been given by my father that I never trusted anyone else to touch. I left Mason exactly what he gave me for years. Nothing. I kept it quiet. No dramatic speeches. No passive-aggressive, just so you know, texts. I simply erased them from my legacy, as they had erased me from their lives long before. Carla told me more than once that she had seen plenty of revenge wills, but never one so methodical. I told her it wasn't revenge. It was balance. Finally, balance. And yet, through all of it, I stayed calm. I wasn't angry in the way people usually think of anger, shouting, fists, slammed doors. No, my anger had calcified into something colder. Something deliberate. There's a strange peace in that. Like watching a fire burn down to glowing coals and knowing exactly which log goes next. They'll find out soon enough. They'll sit in that lawyer's office, expecting another round of easy money and half-hearted grief, and they'll hear my voice on that recording Carla insisted we make. And when the terms are read, and when they realize what I've done, their jaws will hit the goddamn floor. And, even then, I doubt they'll understand why. Dying wasn't what scared me. I'd come too close to it too many times for it to rattle me now. Not after sleeping in foxholes with rats and mortars overhead. Not after sitting beside my wife as the life drained slowly and unfairly out of her body while the hospital lights buzzed like broken promises. Death never lied to you. It didn't dress itself up in frosting and fake laughter. It just came, quiet and sure, with no pretense. What scared me, truth be told, was the idea that I'd die and they'd keep thinking of me as nothing more than a footnote in their lives, an afterthought, a forgotten number in their contact list, a silent ATM they never once asked how it earned its balance. The diagnosis came quietly. Just a checkup I'd put off for too long. A little shortness of breath, a pain behind the ribs that wouldn't go away. A few scans. Some blood work. Then a long look from a doctor too young to understand how to deliver bad news without sounding rehearsed. Stage 4. Inoperable. Terminal. That's what they said. I didn't ask how long. I didn't need a damn countdown clock hanging over my head. I just went home, fed the dog, and started getting my affairs in order like a man sweeping the porch before the storm rolls in. I didn't tell Brianna. I didn't tell Mason. Why would I? So they could call twice and cry once? So they could post a picture of us together with some bullshit caption like, "You were the best, Grandpa, wish we had more time." While ignoring the fact that the last message I got from either of them was over a month ago and it was about a bounce check or a forgotten birthday. No, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of pretending they cared in the final stretch. If they didn't show up for the living version of me, they didn't deserve the dying one either. The house grew quiet in those last months, but it was a good quiet. Not the kind that suffocates, but the kind that heals. I finally had time to finish the old Schwinn bicycle that had been sitting in the garage since the spring, a rusted red frame from the 50s with a dent in the back wheel and a seat that had seen better decades. I fixed it up, piece by piece, cleaned the chain, replaced the tubes, polished the chrome. Took me a week, working slower than usual, breathing harder, but there was something beautiful in it. A small, forgotten machine being brought back to life by old hands that still remembered how to care. There were other things to tend to, too. Letters. Not many. Just 2. One for Carla, my lawyer, with instructions about the house and the will and a few final donations I wanted made. The other was for Jake. A handwritten note sealed in an envelope with his name scrawled across it in my crooked old script. I didn't tell him what was coming. Just told him to keep building, keep learning, and never let anyone tell him he was just some kid. Because the truth was, in a world full of people who'd forgotten how to appreciate things, Jake reminded me of what it meant to give a damn. And then there was the photo. The goddamn cake photo. I'd printed it out the day after the party, had it framed in a cheap black frame I picked up at the drugstore. It was just the cake, sitting on that fold-up table with the words in blood-red icing screaming, "Congrats on being irrelevant." I added my own little touch with a silver marker on the glass. I might have been irrelevant, but I wasn't stupid. That went in the envelope too, right alongside a certified copy of the revised will. Carla would make sure it got to them the morning after. On my final night, I sat in my old recliner, the one Marlene used to say looked like it belonged on a curb, with the dog curled up at my feet and the sound of wind through the trees humming low through the cracked window. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel regret. I felt finished. Done. Like the last bolt tightened on a rebuilt engine. You don't mourn an engine that's been rebuilt well. You admire it. You respect it. You let it rest when the work's complete. I died on a Tuesday. Alone. But God, I'd never felt so damn in control. And on Wednesday morning, they found out everything. It was a gray, humid morning when they all filed into the lawyer's office, eyes dry, expressions somewhere between vague annoyance and mild curiosity, the kind of bored detachment people wear when they expect free money and nothing more. Brianna had done up her makeup, thick under the eyes like she thought maybe a few smeared tears would sell the idea of grief better, while Mason scrolled his phone under the table like he was killing time between classes he never attended. No one brought flowers. No one asked about arrangements. No one even said my name aloud before the meeting began. Carla, my lawyer, had prepared them in the most minimal way possible, she said. This won't be a typical reading. She didn't explain further. She just pulled out a laptop, plugged in a small speaker, and, without another word, pressed play. That's when I appeared on the screen. Me, in my old garage, sitting in the same chair I'd used to rebuild a dozen engines, dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans, clean-shaven for once, looking right into the lens like I was staring directly into their excuses. If you're watching this, I began, my voice even, no tremble, no drama, then I'm dead. Shocking, I know. Considering how often you checked in, I bet this is coming as a real surprise. I paused just long enough to let that sink in. Brianna shifted in her seat, arms crossed tight, her smile frozen and twitching at the corners like she didn't quite know how pissed she should be yet. I didn't leave much behind, not by your standards, I continued. No stocks, no secret fortune, no buried gold bars under the porch, though I know damn well Mason probably joked about it once or twice. What I had was simple, a house, some tools, a few savings accounts, and one hell of a memory for who gave a damn when it mattered. Mason rolled his eyes, just slightly, the way young men do when they think wisdom died before smartphones were invented. Carla didn't flinch. She'd seen this act before. But I wasn't speaking to her. I was speaking to the people who had failed the test they didn't even know they were taking. I want to be clear, I said. This wasn't out of spite. Well, maybe a little, but mostly it's out of clarity. You made choices, and so did I. You chose to treat me like a relic. A piece of outdated furniture collecting dust until you could justify selling it. You laughed at that cake like it was harmless fun. You took pictures. You posted them. You got likes. I got clarity. Now Brianna was red in the face. Not from sadness, but from the kind of rage that comes when control starts to slip. The type of anger people show when they realize they never actually knew the rules of the game they thought they were winning. You get nothing, I said, eyes fixed, voice calm. No money. No heirlooms. No keys. No sympathy. I'm not handing out rewards for indifference. There was a pause, and then the camera cut to another angle, me holding the framed picture of the cake, now encased in glass, with my handwritten message across the front in silver ink. I might have been irrelevant, but I wasn't stupid. That was when Carla placed a sealed envelope on the desk in front of a teenage boy sitting quietly in the corner of the room. Jake, my neighbor's kid. The only one who ever sat with me long enough to ask about the war, the engines, the loneliness, and never once asked for a single damn thing in return. To Jake, I said on screen, nodding gently, I leave the house. Every nail, every board, every oil stain in the garage. I leave you the tools in the back shed, the Schwinn bicycle, and the old garden with the faded sunflowers. You earned it not because you asked, but because you listened. Jake didn't say a word. He didn't gloat. He didn't gawk. He just nodded, eyes glassy, mouth shut. That alone said more about him than all the birthday cards I never got from the others combined. And one more thing, I added, almost smiling, there's a safe in the back corner of the basement, covered with a blue tarp behind the old drill press. Inside that safe is something important. Something I wanted to keep until the end. Only Jake knows the code. And if you're wondering what's inside, well, you'll have to ask him. And good luck with that. At that moment, Mason sat forward, his phone forgotten, his mouth hanging open like a man watching his chips disappear in a game he never took seriously. Brianna turned fully toward Carla now, her voice tight, fake sweet. There must be some mistake. This is a joke, right? Carla shook her head once, slow and final, and then quietly began placing signed documents on the table. The kind that couldn't be disputed without a judge, a miracle, and a damn good reason. There's no mistake, she said. This is binding. This is final. This is what Walter wanted. I ended the video with one last sentence. My voice lowered, not with weakness, but with weight. Relevance isn't measured by cake frosting, sweetheart. It's measured by who remembers you, and why.